Sure. Colleen Schwerke from Osseo.
Rachel Harmon from Pleasantville, volunteer.
Phyllis Olson from Blair.
Beth Killian, Arcadia.
George Brandt from French Creek.
Melissa Youngbauer, I am the ADRC supervisor.
Scott Brown from the Whitehall area.
Mary Beck from Whitehall.
Sammy Becker, I'm the Nutrition and Transportation Coordinator for the ADRC.
Joan Sasala from Independence.
Jeannie Nutter, County Board Supervisor, 15th District, which is part of Strum, part of Osseo, part of Albion. It's a weird little area that I have.
Rebecca Rick, admin for ADRC.
Thank you all for coming. And it looks like we've got somebody online there, but it's Sammy, so we won't have you reintroduce yourself since you already did that. I think it's just happening.
IT just
Yeah,
does it.
he was in there, but yeah.
It does it by itself. It's magic.
It's automatic, it picks up your voices.
Artificial intelligence. It was something on the news this morning that I missed. I walked back into the living room and it was just finishing, but something drastic about AI, and I wish I had caught it. But open meeting law has been met through the proper requirements. We have an agenda in front of us. I'd ask for a motion to approve our agenda.
I second.
Moved in second to approve agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. The minutes of our meeting in April. If you've had a chance to look through them, are there any additions or corrections?
I have one. I was listed as absent, but I was here.
Uh-oh.
Sorry.
That's okay.
We will get you added. Yes.
Any other corrections? Entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve.
Is there a second? Okay. It's a motion to approve and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Council membership, we have a new person here today, George Brandt. Thank you for agreeing. I had to twist his arm a little bit over at Sweet Temptations.
Agreeing and more, you have to do this. You double team the Jeannie Nutter.
That's true.
Well, that's got it.
Yep, we appreciate you coming. You have good ideas and
You
can
don't know
represent
that for
well.
sure.
In front of closed doors, I know you have some good ideas. How's that? I don't know what goes on behind them, but Rita, I called Rita Halverson, and she was hoping to be here today, and I thought that was her van down in the handicap parking area, but I don't know, maybe she's sitting in the basement or something waiting for a meeting. I hope not, but yeah, she said she would like to be here, but she has ongoing health issues, and that's totally understandable, but we'll keep her in our thoughts and our hopes of coming back. And we do have one vacancy yet, representing individuals over 60. So if you know anybody that could represent that age, most of us know, most of the people we know are over 60 at this point. Sammy, maybe you can go from table to table at the senior meals and look for a member. You're so good at bringing information to us, and no, I don't want to put it on you, but
Do they have to be from a certain area or just anybody in the county over 60?
I think we were at this point still trying to recruit somebody from the southern
okay.
part, because I'm not seeing any representation here now from Trempealeau or Galesville.
Well, George and I often go to the Garden of Eden for lunch. We can harangue someone there.
It's almost a senior meal site.
It
most
is.
of the time,
It really is.
Yeah,
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
okay.
And
That's our assignment, I guess.
Yes.
Sammy is actually going in the near future, to the meal site in Galesville, to Boondock. So maybe that's something then you could also talk to some of those
Sure.
folks about.
Will be 3 of us in Galesville trying to get someone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll end up with a busload of people from Galesville to Whitehall. Yeah, we'd have to have them call Melissa to be sure that, we can't have too many, I guess, but
I think it is always almost a good idea just to have some people that may be interested, even just attending the meetings, getting into the habit, because we almost always have an opening. So if we were able to fill this one opening, it probably would just be a matter of time until we needed somebody else. So get them on board and getting them, joining and learning more about what we do. And
What am I
think
getting
it'd be
into? What's the life expectancy once you get on this committee?
It never ends.
Oh,
No, I'm
okay.
kidding. No,
Like it just
no, we'll
goes-
get you the bylaws,
Okay,
George.
thank you.
Yeah.
I do need some
Yes,
introductions.
yeah.
yep. You've become immortal now, you can't stop.
We've got treats and presents for this person.
Is this,
Yeah.
is that what this is?
It is.
Can do some planting, and
All right.
I still have one, Sammy gave me one last Wednesday, and now I've got 2, so I'll have 2 flowers I can plant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a couple of them in the yard, probably soon to be hundreds. I looked up a while back, I think when Easter was coming up, and I was trying to put, how does a rabbit come in with Easter? Because normally, that's Jesus dying on the cross. Won't get too political or too religious here, but rabbits have a gestation period of like 28 days, and they can mate the day after they have a litter. So they could have like 120 babies in a year. It's just incredible. So, sorry, you probably didn't want to know that, but anything else about,
I don't think so.
okay?
I just want to say it's great that I don't think we've ever had this many people at a meeting. So this is great. So I can feel the energy.
I love it.
Yeah.
Does everybody know Becky? If you don't, you can talk to her later and find out her whole curriculum vitae. Preliminary input on Vision 2026, 2027. Is that you?
It is me,
Okay.
yes, yeah. So we all are kind of in different places as far as how much we know about our nutrition program. So I felt like we should do some introduction of where we were, where we are now, and then looking at you to help shape our future, okay? So wanting to look at our current contract snapshot. So in your packet, we have 2 pages. The first 2 pages that are clipped together have a snapshot of our current congregate meal sites, where they're at, all kinds of really great information on there as far as, how many days a week we have those meals, total attendance, average attendance, where our donations are at, what we're paying for the meals. And then we have the second page that shows where we are currently contracting with for our home delivered meal providers. So you can kind of just take a minute or 2 to look at that while I just continue to give a little bit of a current snapshot. We are currently operating in 2-year contracts for all of our nutrition programs. And so those contracts are set to expire at the end of 2025. So as a result of that, we now need to start putting together requests for proposals for our next 2-year cycle. So that would be for 2026 to 2027. So we need to start looking at that, sending those out to the public, either the end of summer or the very beginning of fall. So let's look back a little bit. So just 4 years ago, just so you kind of know where we were at, we were operating 2 restaurants, meal sites at 2 restaurants that were serving meals 5 days a week. some of you remember, the two restaurants were Boondocks, so that was in Galesville, and the other restaurant was in Blair, the Rainbow Restaurant, okay? A key goal of ours in that in the last 4 years was to expand dining opportunities across the county. So it was kind of at that point, that's when we really made some changes. We did work pretty hard. We got some more people on board. So we were serving 10 meals, just to review, 10 meals at 2 restaurants. We then are at this point now where we're serving 10 days collectively at 6 different meal sites. We've also explored some different kinds of dining options. So it was the 2 restaurants that were serving 1 meal per day. We are now, we have the My Meal, My Way model, which is the restaurants where you can order from multiple options. Okay, we're offering that in a couple locations right now. We have 1 restaurant that has a no reservation policy. That's brand new. We've never done that before. And we've done those kinds of things just to kind of explore, to see what people want. And so we're proud of the progress we've made and where our program stands today. I think we do have a lot to be proud of. But that being said, we really do want to take this opportunity to evaluate where we're at, what's working, what may not be working as well. And we want you to tell us where you think, like, what are your priorities? Where do you want to go with this? Also, it is important to say, we have historically had a challenge in getting people to want to be part of this, right? It's not like we've had, 20 food providers that have said, we want to be in on this. When we did our most recent contract, so the 2024 to 2025, we only had 1 provider that we didn't choose to work with us. That provider, the reason really why they weren't chosen was they were way higher than our other providers. But that being said, that restaurant has also now since closed. So just to kind of give you an idea of the volatility of the food providers that are out there. Going back the cycle before, we actually had 2 providers that ended their contracts. We had a different restaurant that closed, and then we had another food provider that ended their contract early. They just said this, too much insecurity with staffing and that type of thing. So just wanting you to understand it isn't that we've had, 25 providers to choose from. It has been a little bit of a challenge, and I think that probably, all of you are familiar with restaurants closing and prices shifting a lot, all of that. So wanting you to be aware of that. Wanting you to just say it's really important. Your feedback, we do really take seriously. And we want to know what is most important to you, what's most important to the communities that you represent, because really I look at these decisions with the nutrition programs as really some of the most important decisions that are in front of us, really.
So can I ask?
Yeah, absolutely.
Turn your mic on, please.
I remember that. I noticed mine went on.
So, how much you guys have the information. See, the commitment, are you asking us if there's a commitment to continuing the program? And if that's so, what are your figures in terms of?
I don't think it's a
Wait, just.
Okay.
But what are your figures in terms of demographic, aging people, the need, and if, as I read in the paper recently, and which is obvious, that the average age of people in Trempealeau County is increased. Actually, it was in the minutes from the last meeting. That we're going to have a larger older population, that's the first question. Is there a need, and what's your information that's based on that conclusion, one way or another? Also, it looks to me like you're getting a significant turnout already, which is to say there are people who are regularly attending and expecting the service to continue to be provided. And then as the sort of tangent, where does the delivered meals, I know that's the next page, but I guess question number 3 is, what does a county-operated site in Pine Creek look like? Who makes the food, and why is it county-operated as opposed to church or bar or whatever?
That's a lot of questions.
Well, okay, let's start with the information about demographics and whether or not the need is going to be there.
So demographics are, you need to be 60 or older to,
No, in terms of information you have about how many 60 and older people there are going to be in the county. I hope you guys are working with that, I'm assuming.
yeah, and I think as recently as, like you said, they were in the demographics were at our last meeting. We did talk about demographics. Off the top of my head, I don't know what it is. I think somewhere right around a quarter of our population right now is over 60.
Right, with the increase coming.
And I think it's about 33%. It is projected to be something like 33% by the year, is it 2036 maybe? It's rising. The need's going to be there. Mm-hmm.
That's the answer there.
Yeah, the need is going to be there.
And so the second question was expectations. You know, with this particular, the current model, you've, in a sense, trained the people in these communities that this is going to be available, and so there's an expectation. Have you heard that in your discussions with people in the who are taking the meals? I was accidentally stumbled into the Meal My Way in Whitehall one day, and was just blown away. They were like setting chairs out in the street practically. So they're,
Yeah,
coming to
I think
that
it's
soon.
true.
so is the expectation there? Will people come?
These meals have been around, I mean, going back to the Older Americans Act, that's when funding started to be provided to communities to do home-delivered meals and the senior meals. So I don't see that going away. What I was going to say also, when we're considering these decisions, I think right now, we should be moving forward under the assumption that funding levels will remain about the same. We're not getting any, information that funding will be cut significantly, although that could definitely change. But part of the analysis today is that if there were to be cuts made, where are our priorities? If that makes sense.
Maybe I could also say, with the expectation that's already out there and the number, like you're saying, the increase, but you're just saying the funding's gonna stay the same, even if we don't have a reduction, right? We're not gonna be able to make the money piece work, because more people would be expecting this and coming because the demographic shift is happening, yet we're not seeing any increase in funding. In fact, we might see a loss, right? There's a lot of talk about where we would see cuts, so that's a valid question, I think, is how would you continue these services even and to grow them?
Can I add? Thank you, Becky. It seems that in terms of donation and actual cost, you're looking at half is paid for by donation. So that, because I'm new to this, so a significant amount of money comes from who to make up the difference? The state, the federal government?
Both.
Both, okay.
And some local.
And some local meaning county?
County,
Okay.
yep. Yes, that's exactly right, yes.
And total number is huge, minuscule, sort of doable.
Of the total number of,
Well, let's follow Becky's suggestion where there would be a rise in total numbers, a continuation of expectation, yet level funding. If the county had to make it up, how much more would that be?
I think those are all really good questions and why we're asking where are our priorities today. We do have a risk reserve. I feel today's focus really is on what is important down the road. Like, we have a fiscal manager. She's joined us in the past. Her name is Kelly Sweat. That would be something that both she and Jay, our director, would be more, I would say they would be better at answering those fiscal pieces. Today, again, the real focus is what is important. If things stay the same, still I feel like there's really important decisions to be made, because I think if you look at just, do we feel like this is where we would want things to be, or do you think that there are adjustments that should be made?
Years ago, before your time here, me specifically, thought about having a policy for a waiting list for meals. And then Guar came and explained to our committee, this was in the Human Services Committee, why we needed to have a policy for a waiting list. And my theory was, we can't have people waiting for food. But we did develop a policy. It's somewhere. We've never
We've
never had to use it, but I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if Meals on Wheels is cut, if funding from the federal government is cut, we don't know the answer to that. Nobody knows what the federal government is doing right now as far as where money's going or whatever. But they've talked about eliminating Meals on Wheels. They've talked about cutting a lot of things. But I think you have to figure out what can we possibly, and I envision we may have to have a waiting list in a couple of years if we don't have the money, you know.
Jeannie, may I?
Yeah, of course.
The difference between being on the county board, where one thinks about budgets and money and limitations, and being a citizen is that I can say something like this, which is, my experience with prioritizing means that you've already decided you're going to have less money. And it means that you've already decided that there are people who are going to go without. It might be the advantage of an advisory board and a citizen and volunteers that you can say, no, it's important to feed people, and we're going to do whatever we can to make sure that service gets provided because it's a needed service. And I would say, instead of prioritizing, commit to feeding people who need to be fed. I mean, that would, see, now everyone's feeling uncomfortable, but.
No, I agree.
Yeah, so that's I mean, as an advisor, this isn't a budgeting committee, this is an advisory committee. Take it, I don't know who your boss is, but take it back to your boss and tell them, feed the people.
All of the, if my brain, you know, even though there's only 18 at daily average at the one in Strum, that's 18 people that come to eat, you know? Where will they go?
I think the other thing that we have to take a look at, besides the need for food, is I went to Strum for one of the meals. The camaraderie there and the caring. One person wasn't there. They went and checked on that person.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they were coming, but, you know, they had lost something in their house, and so they helped them and they brought them in. And it was just such a warm atmosphere. And where is that going to happen if we don't have those meals? And in a rural environment like we live in, there isn't an alternative. If you were in the middle of La Crosse or Eau Claire, you could have some other places to go. But there's nothing. So I think as important as the food is, and I agree, I think the other thing is the socialization and the caring and the care of every person that comes to that. That's almost as important.
boy, you're exactly saying what the state envisioned when they had developed congregate meal sites, is that very thing.
Yeah, that's what it's
Is that
about.
we don't want to serve a home delivered meal to someone who can get out. And that's the whole purpose.
Right.
You know, and I love hearing that story, it gave me the chills about, you know, someone not there and they were gonna go check on them. I mean,
Yeah.
that's gonna be me someday, you know? So,
Because there's nobody else to do the cooking.
I don't want us to eliminate anything. That's my feeling right at this moment.
I'd like to say something quick. As a county board member that's not on this committee anymore. I'm seeing things that I can maybe take back to the full board, so keep talking.
So can I?
Both of us, yep.
So that's my feeling. I don't want to change anything.
When,
I'd like to see another day in Whitehall. That would be great.
One of the other things that's come up is they're building a community center in Independence. Independence has nothing. And so I feel that, I know many people in that area, they need the socialization, and maybe not the food as much as the socialization.
when we were working on last year's request for proposals, and we were talking about the money and budgeting, before the last cycle, the donation suggested amount was $4. And, you know, I believe I made the motion or recommendation to increase it to 5. Maybe that's something we need to look at. If the donation total isn't there, maybe in this next cycle, we have to go to 6. You know, I mean, some people, like myself included, certainly can afford $6 for a meal. Because if you go anywhere else, you're paying way more than $6. And there's always plenty of food. It's not like, it's almost like I could do a take-home from the meal. But then there are other people that, you know, can't. So, you know, that's
I
something
think
maybe we
that
can
is
look
an
at.
option. You're right. The last time we did raise it, because it had been at 4, we raised it to 5, and it increased. Because I think, in my mind, the people that, like you said, the people that can afford it are the ones that are going to give more. I know that's a conversation that, Sammy, you have a lot with your peers across the state, and they keep a close eye on where everybody's at. I think right now yeah. But there are those that are doing 6 or even more, so that's certainly something that can be on the table.
I recently picked up a newsletter from Eau Claire County, and I don't know if Trempealeau County has this, but in Eau Claire County, they have a yearly March for Meals campaign. Do we have that in Trempealeau County?
We don't.
Talked about doing it, or
You know, because they've got sponsors here, people and businesses that have sponsored 125 meals or more. And there's different categories like gold, bronze, silver. You know, and sponsors that supported 125 meals, then 25 meals, and then just additional sponsorship that just gave a flat amount. Is that something we could try and help to have that extra funding as we grow with people getting meals and/or the cost of food? Just a thought.
Yeah, I know Eau Claire County has done it for a while
Yeah.
with some success.
Yeah, you know, and they've got the people listed in their newsletter, so those people and organizations get recognized, and maybe that recognition prompts other people to do it too, so. Just a thought.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Other good ideas? They're starting to flow. I think eventually, Sweet Temptations is gonna need to get a bigger building. We're already, they're open from 12:30 to 1:30, but everybody's there by 11:45 these days, just trying to get a place to sit. It's pretty
George,
amazing.
you had asked a question about Pine Creek.
Yes.
Yeah.
What does a county-operated place look like?
Yeah, so
And
that's
what-
been open a really long time.
Yeah.
Maybe some of you might know more than me. It's been open for probably 20 years, yeah. And so it seems like the origin is a little bit hazy of how it actually came to be. Ladies, thank you, to make the meals. So who here has been to the Pine Creek meals? Anybody?
Me.
Okay.
It's like the Strum one, they know everybody, they talk all the time, they play cards.
I think I visited it one time, if I remember.
I think it started in the very beginning, back even when Stacy Garlick had your job at the very beginning.
Okay.
And it was to encourage the beginning of congregate meal site. So then you had to have somebody start it, so it had to be the county. And I think it's just stayed that way.
And so we don't pay for that space. We don't pay for space for any of our sites. But so really the only costs there are the salary, the wages for the two staff that make the food. And then they purchase the groceries as well. So they are paid even when they do the grocery shopping. They go to Winona, buy the groceries. And it's interesting, if you can see, what the cost of that is. That's a recent estimate. Our financial director just, came up with that amount just last week.
It's the biggest one.
If you look and see, if you look at the home delivered meal providers and what Eau Claire County, because again, we contract with Eau Claire County to make, or to provide our meals in the northern part of the county, and we're paying them less than we are as well for any of our other providers.
With
I will-
Pine Creek, we have had a couple of board meetings at Pine Creek. We'd take a bus or people would drive and then we'd have a meeting and then we'd eat the meal afterwards. And that was always pretty fun. You have to be careful. You don't want to sit at a table that's usually, everybody's got their spot.
reserved.
Yeah, I did that. I was there for their.
It's like church.
Yeah, I was there for their Thanksgiving meal a couple of years ago, and I sat down at this table, and almost immediately somebody said, well, that spot's going to be taken in a little while when church is done. I said, I just want to talk to you guys for a little bit, and I'll move, gladly move. Yeah.
It's a really good site. You can see it's our second most attended site. People love the food. It is a little community, like you said, they all know one another. It's fun to see. They all are fun to see, to be honest, but.
I think some of the things to also consider is, at some of the other sites, these are businesses, and they need to make a living too, where the county-operated one is like a nonprofit. So we
right.
have to consider that, and can you get at the other sites a nonprofit? Probably not. So, I mean, it's a mixture.
It's a mixture. It really is. It is a mixture. You like the nice, you like the mixture?
Yeah, some in a restaurant, some is catered, some one the county runs. It's like a salad.
It is like a salad, yeah. Any other feedback?
So so
There still is a survey
Change anything.
that I would like people to try to complete.
You want us to do this survey?
I do want you to do the survey, if you could. It doesn't need to be right now. It can be, maybe some of you need to complete it. And if Jeannie or anybody wants to say, don't change anything and just write that on there, that's okay.
Is it supposed to be in here?
It should be. I think it's.
I
Does
ask a-
anybody else have any feedback? I mean,
say,
there's
I-
volunteers here, there's some of you that have been to every meal site. Is there anything that, any other discussion you would like to have about the meals?
Just had a question, I guess. Since, and I'm just asking, but it sounds like a lot of the meal piece, the value is the socialization, which is absolute. I used to run a community meal program, so I appreciate and I love it. I think it's wonderful. So my question is, because it's not necessarily a financial need, are people able, or would they be willing to pay for the meal rather than it being subsidized? Just a question. Or would that deter individuals from coming, that they want to be able to get the meal for $5? But in order to keep the meal going, is it something like people feel value and I just want to go there to be with my friends and see everybody and have this great conversation? I'd be willing to pay for my meal. I'm just bringing that up as a conversation to think about as we struggle with trying to figure out budgets and what's going to be our priority across our whole organization. And this is of value. I absolutely agree. Like I said, I ran a program for 10 years, so I feel near and dear to my heart. But it's a question of how do we make the numbers work also? So it's just something to, as a question to pose, I guess, to think about.
I think it's kind of a mixed bag. There are a lot of people that probably would pay the full price to eat with their friends, but there are others that are hurting financially, and I think they really appreciate that it's $5. We also offer it that if you can't pay anything, just come and eat anyway. But I don't know if we can put a thing out there that if people want to drop a little extra in, it looks as though at Sweet Temptations, the average is over $5, so some people are putting in a little extra. But, yeah, that's a good question. I think we'd lose some if we put it all the way up to the full price.
So the road that Becky's suggesting to go down invariably ends up with proof of need, and that'll just send people running away. So just, again, if all you're thinking about is the bottom line, you're going to end up with less and less services. Again, I don't have to worry about the bottom line, but it's the benefit that it's the intangibles as well as the tangibles, and they can't be separated.
And per the state, we can't, it has to say it's a suggested contribution. It's all voluntary, so none of it's mandatory.
That's a good point.
We can't, per the state, we have to give them the option that even if you can't pay for the meal, you're not going to be denied the meal.
Is the suggested price then the actual cost of the meal?
Right.
That's my question, I guess.
No, so we have, there is a meal cost tool that is required. So the cost of providing a meal is much higher than what's listed and what we pay the food. Those two different things, what we pay the food providers. It's something like $14 is what, so if you add in, all of our wages, the food costs, all of that, it's, 14, yeah.
And we do have, it doesn't reflect on here as much, but I know, there are sites where I've sat at the table and people do, instead of $5, they put in 20 and don't want change, or, those that are able do tend to do that more often than not. So.
You might want to just speak a little bit about, it is very regulated as far as how we need to do it. It has to be anonymous, what people donate. There is a sign that says what the actual cost is. So there's a lot of pieces that, that are required.
Can you educate me in terms of?
Yeah.
And where do the requirements come from?
They come from the state. I believe just the state, right? Not any higher?
Yeah, the state.
From the state they come and, yep, all of our boxes are locked. They're kept locked there. The volunteers that, work at the table have the keys to it. They're the only ones. And, they're boxes that they're solid. You can't see into them because everything should be anonymous. Nobody should be, they see somebody walk through and not pay, nobody should be calling them out or, saying something to them. And there is a sign, and it does give the actual cost of the meal. It lists that also if somebody wanted to dine that's not 60 or older, they're welcome to, but then that is the cost that they, are to pay, is the $14.42, I believe is what it is, so. There is a sign, it's right there by the box. I don't know if there's anything
Yeah,
else really on it.
The state visits every year and they do kind of what's considered an inspection to see if we're following the policies that they've outlined for us in order to receive these funds to help pay for our program, so. Kind of like that, but we do know when they're coming, but.
You get glowing reviews.
We have, yes,
Really,
we have.
seriously, they have.
Something, when you're talking about, you have all these things available. If we did some fundraising, like what Colleen talked about, or something else, if that information could be there as well, because then we're showing that, yes, the costs are increasing. Here's what we're doing to help defray those costs, and then can you help out as well? So, I mean, already people are giving, but if they would see this, that
Yeah.
they would acknowledge how the costs are being worked with.
I guess I could add too, as far as like the home delivered meals, that's also just a suggested contribution, or it has to be from the state. So they do receive a monthly statement in the mail with, you've received this many meals based on our $5 donation fee. This is how much we are suggesting you contribute. And then people send back what they can. And again, if they don't send anything, they don't send anything because we don't want them to go without the meal, but, yeah.
Some time ago, I saw information which suggested that for many people who receive home-delivered meals, that's their only interaction with somebody else. So
Yeah.
that one of the critical components of that program is just stimulation
Yeah,
as well as nutrition.
exactly. Somebody to talk to, somebody to check on them. Our drivers have definitely come across those that have fallen or that are ill or need extra help. And it's peace of mind that they know that somebody is coming.
I think you can share the story about last month of one of the drivers.
Yeah, we had a lady in Whitehall, and our driver was there, and she had fallen, couldn't get up, was in a severe pain. Ambulance came. 2 weeks later, our driver came, and she had fallen and was deceased. So our drivers do come across it, and she had no family in this area. And just last week, I had a gentleman who I was assessing for meals, and, he was very scared about the $5 a meal. He needs the meals 5 days a week, but he was trying to figure out how, if he did 2 or 3 days, if he could get 2 meals out of each lunch, and it was his only meal he was getting, and, so you do try and stress.
And this is, again, somebody that you said
Had
doesn't have
nobody.
family.
Yeah, he, put his neighbor down as an emergency contact. I mean, he has nobody. So he's in very, I go to the house and you can see he's in very much need of these meals. And to hear that he's trying to figure out how to get 2, and he's not a small guy, so I'm like, some people can get 2 meals out of it, but I don't know if he can, and to hear he's gonna pick and choose so he can stretch it for a week, you just try and stress that they you know, we're not gonna penalize you if you can't pay us, because we know you need it, so.
It was about a year and a half ago or so, Whitehall High School students do some home-delivered meal stuff in this area, and one of the, I think it was a senior, David Orge's son, found a woman, and called the police. I mean, he couldn't even get into the house, I don't think,
was
but
locked.
it was locked, so he was able to call 911 and helped her.
And she said that she knew that he was I mean, it was peace of mind for her, because she knew he would be coming, with the meal, so she.
So it's a safety, more than just seeing somebody, it's a real safety check, which we don't have. We don't have home visitor program for people, which I wish we could do, but we don't have the money for that. So, yeah, it's really, these meals provide a lot to people other than just nourishment. I'm sad about that.
Sorry to bring the mood.
I know,
Who
no.
died, I
it's-
didn't
it's-
realize that.
But it is what they experience every day. And those of
And
you that
that-
deliver meals here, you,
And that goes to the wait list side of things too, is how do you tell that gentleman, like, I'm sorry, we can't get you meals right now, you know, or we have a couple that just started and they're in Dodge, Main Street Dodge, and trying to figure out where they're gonna fall on our routes, and it's 20 extra minutes for either route, but how do you tell them, I'm sorry, we can't reach you?
just wanting you to know that these are decisions and conversations all counties are having. And there are counties that have waiting lists. And there are some counties that do have the meal sites that are 5 days a week, but there's 2 meal sites. That is still an option. You know, it's not saying that this model we have right now is the only way we could do things. Like you said, it is kind of a salad right now of, you know.
Well, it's because we're this long,
Yes.
skinny,
Yeah.
you know, it takes, from my house to get to Galesville, it takes almost an hour.
Yeah.
Because I'm going from top to bottom, so we can't just have 2 meal sites for people.
Be correct.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's weird how we're set up, so.
Yeah, it is different, I will say
And
that.
I think Clark County's strange too, because it's a huge county, big fat square, gravel roads in places, so.
So I would ask that if you can, complete the survey, if not today, sometime in the near future. I would love for any of you to meet with Sammy or I and talk more about this. We would love for you to join us. Go on a home delivered meal route with us, or Colleen. I'm sure Colleen, you would have somebody join you as well. That's really the way to learn more about, and I think it's just so important to see what it is that we're doing. It's important. Every day is important. We're serving about 100 meals every day right now in our home delivered meal program, so.
Like we all said, it is more than nutrition. You know, I've brought in trash cans from the street. I've taken in their mail. I've ran after the dog that got out. I've called family when I found someone laying down, you know, laying on her living room floor, so. And they don't answer the door. They don't answer their phone. And being from Osseo, I know most of the people or their families, so I've already not only contacted the emergency person on the list, but if that emergency person doesn't answer, it just happened yesterday. I had to call this lady's sister. So, but she was okay. She was at a doctor's appointment, just forgot. But yeah, it's more than filling their tummies, so.
Yeah, really.
I've never heard rain in here before like that.
I think it's maybe one done.
Anything else? Think of it later. You know Melissa's number. and where she,
know where to
where she
find me.
works, yeah, for sure. So let's move on to the Marty Schreiber event.
Okay, I think we've talked about this at least at one meeting, maybe two. We've got the tabletop little things on your table, on your desk. We've got information in your folder. Just wanting you to know, right now, we're below where we were hoping to be. We have 31 registered right now, so that's not a lot. I would really love to have at least 50 join us for lunch and the event. So we'd love your help spreading the word. So whether it's just by word of mouth, sharing it on social media, we've got another Facebook post scheduled for later today. If you want to take these, if you want to take any of the flyers, they're still in the back. We got 2 weeks from tomorrow, so. We do have a book night scheduled for next week. That is in Whitehall, so people can go and discuss the book. So we're hoping that will also generate. Yes, in Whitehall. So we're hoping that will generate some excitement. We did record a segment for our county TV station last week. That's gonna start airing later this week, so hopefully that'll get some buzz generated as well. But we also will be happy to take your name today if you have anybody. Okay. Okay.
One for Nutter.
Okay. Becky, would you mind just taking that down right now? That would be great. Mary, you're signed up, I think, already. Yep.
I believe I am too.
I'm fast.
You are, you're one of the first.
Does anybody have any questions or feedback about the event?
I'm gonna sign up before everybody else signs up.
I did check out the book from the Arcadia Public Library, and yeah, it only took about 2 hours to read. Easy reading, and it's so good, and I keep trying to convince a few people how important the message is that he has, but I don't think it sinks in, but I keep trying.
And there's pictures in the book.
Yeah.
too. I mean, so that takes away some of the, to look at. So it is a very
I do feel like it, still 2 weeks before the event, based on the Wine Women dementia. We still didn't, I mean, that grew at the very end, so I'm still hopeful that we'll have 50, so.
I was fortunate to win one of the books at bingo over at the, I was gonna say the Weissman Center. Wanik, yeah. Weissman, where'd that come from?
Yeah, that's in Madison.
Yeah. Haven't been there lately. Yeah, I ended up giving it to Diane and Matt Schrader to read first, so I just realized I gotta reach out. I wanna read that before the day. Yep. We usually do stuff together. Anything more about that event? Wrote down that I need to announce it at my 2 churches. Well,
Yes,
3.
you could.
Yeah, 3 churches, yep. So, ADRC supervisor report. It must be
So
you too.
it is, but it's kind of Sammy. We had, in May, we had celebrated Older Americans Month and ADRC Month with 6 different hoedowns throughout the county. So Sammy has put together some pictures from the event. It was a great success. We had about 150 people join us throughout the county. So we just thought, could there be a better way than to actually show some of the photos? So the events consisted of meals, a photo booth, you can see, and then we played bingo at all of the meal sites.
Flannel shirts required.
Not required, but we did have the bandanas that were available to anybody that wanted one, so,
I think everybody had one on in
yeah.
Arcadia. Oh, there they are. Matt and Diane. And Yeehaw.
Yes, it was, yes, it was. Yeah, we were really encouraged of how many people actually came dressed up and just seemed really. We did experiment with having the event at 2 locations that are not our typical meal sites. So we had hoedowns in Osseo at the Lutheran Church and at Trempealeau at the library. So that was kind of nice. And those 2 events went pretty well. Both of them averaged about 20 people. So the food was catered in at both of those, so. Again, that was just an effort to try to be out in more communities because we did have all of our, staff were at all of the events and just, we had literature at all of the events. Mhm. Because what other chance do people get to dress up, right? So people had fun. Yay. Yeah.
Thanks, Sammy.
The county has a long history of putting on programs. I mean, just every community.
Yeah.
has a program. It's good.
I did notice that there were a lot of ADRC TV commercials. And they were all done perfectly excellent. And I thought, hopefully, a lot of people learned more about the ADRC by just watching. I mean, I watch commercials, but a lot of people take off for lunch or snacks during the time.
And there are billboards, commercials on TV and radio, and those are all paid for by the state. So when you are seeing those, we are not paying for those. The state had some ARPA dollars that they used for all of that advertisement, and we received some grant monies to pay for some of the items, like the giveaways that we have most recently purchased too. So, but yeah, they are very nice, professionally done ads. The other update that I just wanted to let people know is, again, this year we have the senior farmers market vouchers. This year, the amount that the state had given all of the counties was $25. So that was a decrease. Last year, they were at $45. This year, they're at $25. So to qualify, individuals' income, their household income must be at or below 185% of the federal poverty level. And so that guideline is also in your folder there. So you're welcome to submit an application today if there's anybody that wants to apply. Otherwise, we encourage you to share that opportunity with people that you know. And we've already given out more than 70. 80, okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Nice.
So well over a quarter of them have been given out now. The state tells us how many vouchers that we receive. This year, we received 235 booklets. So 235 $25 booklets. The last I knew this year, WIC had not received vouchers. So we've always received them, as has the WIC program, and last I knew they weren't receiving them this year. So we feel fortunate that we have them. But we do spend a lot of effort to try to get them out. So we had all of them out at the hoedowns. We could not actually distribute the voucher booklets until June 1st. So now we're actually out and about with the vouchers. Before, we were just giving the applications to people. So, yeah.
How did the booklets get connected to the vendors in the farmers markets or whatever?
So
Or
they're in
how did-
$5 increments, or like a little booklet of $5, so the $5. So you give them to participating vendors. So they're identified by a yellow sign up on top. And then the vendors need to submit that to the state to get their reimbursement. So It's a pretty good program.
It's a process.
Yep, it's a process.
And
Next year, if the program is still in existence, we are told it'll be more of like a debit card where you can go to the farmer and then now you have to buy it using the $5 or you can't get change. You could then go to with the credit card or the debit card, you could go to a farmer and say, I want to buy a $3 bag of carrots, and then they would be able to to do that versus, spending the $5
They would
total.
need the technology to read a debit card.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I don't know how that all would work. I was told the state was still working on deciding who they would be contracting with, so, yeah, more technology. More for us to deal with too, right?
Well, there's phones and iPads that can read debit cards that a lot of people
Yeah.
have, so
Yeah, so,
it's magic. Don't ask me how it works.
Anything else for Melissa at the moment, or Sammy? Okay, open comments. I've got something, the Relay for Life, Trempealeau County is coming up in 3 weeks or so. And I've got a few, like 5 of these, if people are willing to take them and put them in your church or somewhere, maybe some in the building here as well. But this is the 40th year of Relay for Life. Dr. Gordon Klatt started it in 1985, and he ultimately became a cancer survivor and died from his cancer. Ultimately, I think it was stomach cancer or something. But we're going to have it at the high school here, Friday, June 27th, 5 to 9. Opening ceremony at 6. There'll be a meal. Sweet Temptations is going to cater it. We couldn't find anybody else to do it. So silent auction, bucket raffle, 50/50 DJ, kids games, food and more. And most of us know people that are cancer survivors. If you don't know anybody, get to know me. I'm one. But it's kind of a nice cause. We don't know how much longer we'll be doing it. Mary Johnson is kind of she and I are co-chairs basically, but Mary does all the work and I just kind of sign on and keep encouraging her and that sort of thing. But I think this would be my 25th year of participating. So if you're willing to take one somewhere, that would be great. Other ideas?
You can put one right on the bulletin board right down there.
Okay.
Just walk out.
and I'll put one by Human Services.
If they all disappear, I'll make more at home, and I gotta come back a little later anyway and take down my table. May was Mental Health Awareness Month, and I'm with the NAMI organization as well, National Alliance on Mental Illness. So if you are interested in any of that stuff, take it on your way down. Mary and I are gonna go to RCU and then go eat, and then I'll come back a little bit later and take it down. She's been doing that since I picked her up. She's excited. Me too. I like Sweet Temptations. Other things that are happening that need to be, scams are still out there, so continue to be very careful.
I'm so happy with my new van driver. She's so funny. And that I have to laugh at her all the time. But thank you very much for doing the new van driver. And thank you for having me here. I like being here.
Thanks for coming here.
I want to just let people know that Mary's referring to, give a shout out to one of our drivers. Her name is Nancy Dubiel. That's who, I assume, that's who you're talking about? Yeah, Nancy Dubiel.
She's funny.
If any of you know her, but she is a delight, and thank you, Mary. We will let her know.
I say,
Next meeting will be August 5th at 10:30. Yeah, August already, isn't that crazy? Any other business? We're at the end of our agenda, so I guess we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Have a good couple of months.
Thank you for coming.